my fellow detectives. Brenna here from the Mystery of Everything podcast. So, you guys know that I enjoy slapping you with some knowledge about mysteries, but now your taste buds can get slapped too. Not by me, of course, but by HelloFresh. Anyone who knows me knows that I am not exactly chefing it up in the kitchen, but with HelloFresh meals, they make it so easy that not even I can mess it up. I know what you're thinking, but Bryn, I don't have time to cook. Nonsense. I have 3 dogs, 3 cats, a snake, 10 tarantulas, 3 jumping spiders, essentially a zoo, and I still have time to whip up dinner without ever having to go to the grocery. HelloFresh delivers all the pre proportioned ingredients you'll need to make easy, homemade meals. All the proteins, veggies, sauces, spices, and more arrive in your box along with simple instructions that walk you through each step in the cooking process. Not to mention giving me healthier options like the lemony shrimp risotto, a personal favorite. No more fast food runs for me. Plus, I don't have to worry about my face swelling up from tomatoes because they ask all about potential allergens and only send recipes catered directly towards your needs. You can choose meals that match you and your family's lifestyle. With preferences like fit and wholesome, quick and easy, or vegetarian, you'll always find something to love from HelloFresh. It's no mystery as to why they're America's #1 meal kit. Get 10 free meals at hellofresh.com/freemo, applied across 7 boxes. New subscribers only, varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals just by going to hellofresh.com/freemo. Free MOE. Hello, everybody. Brenna here.
And I'm Gabby.
And this is the Mystery of Everything podcast.
Woohoo!
All right. So, I know I said I was going to talk about how plants solved murders today, and I still might. You never know where the wind might blow us. But I got sidetracked as I usually do, and I had to cover this case in honor of the spooky season sadly coming to a close. Because for one, chemistry, forensics, science, you gotta love it. And for two, murder. Need I say more?
Yes,
Today,
tons more.
today we're going to cover the case of the murder of Peggy Carr and the attempted murder of essentially her entire family. So it's going to be
By
fun.
who? Who murdered her and her entire family?
Oh, we're going to find out. Are we? This is a mystery, is it? I'm just kidding. We will find out. It's not a mystery. We're going to find out. But before we dive into details about the murderer, I'm going to set the scene for you guys, and we're going to describe the events that transpired before Peggy's untimely death. So the year is 1988. It is a lovely October day in Alturas, in a farming community in Polk County, Florida. If I'm slaughtering your all's community name, I'm sorry. Slaughtering was a bad.
Yeah.
Ill form. Anywho, Peggy Carr was a 41-year-old woman who worked in a restaurant as a waitress. She was a wife to a husband, Parolin.
That is a really unique name.
So unique. Parealyn. Parolin. But anyways, his nickname was Pie, and we're going to call him Pie for the remainder of this episode. But that is a super unique name, and I kind of dig it.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's good stuff. So she worked at a restaurant as a waitress. She was a wife to Pie, and she was a mother to 3 children, Dwayne, Alan, and Sissy. Peggy's 3 children were all from a previous marriage, along with Pie's 3 children, Travis, Tammy, and Galena. So they had a big family altogether.
That's 6 kids.
2 adults, 6 kids. They lived a very normal life in somewhat of a sleepy town. No crime, Nothing but cattle ranches and orange groves. Sounds like a life that I would like to live. Travis and Duane lived at home with their parents. Tammy and Galena, along with Galena's daughter Casey, lived in a garage converted into an apartment on the same property as the rest of them. So, all essentially on the same plot of land. Brady Bunch vibes. I'm here for it. But where does the story take a turn?
Wouldn't it be really difficult to murder the entire family if like two of them live in a separate house? You'd have to really be plotting to murder everyone, unless they all weren't there.
You'd have to be very intelligent, some might say.
Huh.
Extremely intelligent. October 23rd, 1988, Peggy is working a shift at a restaurant and she starts to feel sick. She starts to feel worse as the shift goes by, and now she's having chest pain. So she decides it would probably be best to go home and rest on the sofa. A few hours pass by as Peggy is resting when her son Duane comes in, and he finds his mother struggling to catch her breath, describing how her feet feel like they're on fire. Her limbs then went numb. She was vomiting, and she eventually got to the point where she couldn't walk or even speak. So she's continuing to get worse. Her husband, Pye, comes in and takes her to the hospital. The hospital had no idea what could possibly be wrong with Peggy. Not surprised there. I just based off the symptoms, I wouldn't know what could be wrong. But they did suggest that it was due to psychological stressors, which brought about physical symptoms, and that the condition was simply psychosomatic.
Sounds like she was poisoned.
Exactly. It sounds like she was poisoned. But I feel like just because she was a woman, they were like, it's all in your head, lady. Psychosomatic.
Just a little anxiety.
Have you been stressed at work lately? That could be causing you to not be able to speak.
Okay, we're making fun of this, but that's like the dumb shit that we would have while we were working at like our old like you still work there, but
I still work there.
I used to be shaking, throwing up, cannot breathe every morning, every day of my life.
I do that shit. I hate my job. I'll say it with my chest. I hate it.
Maybe the doctors are like, it's just another person who hates their job.
I don't know. I feel like Peggy might have liked the restaurant biz. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't know Peggy's life. I do kind of now, but not all of it. So, back to the hospital. Peggy is under observation for 3 days. And during that time, she began to feel better. And she was discharged and sent home. Now, we still don't know what was wrong with her in the first place. They have no idea. So her health returned to normal, but that wouldn't last for long. 4 days later, October 30th, Peggy was sick again. This time it was much worse than last time. She said again that she felt like she was on fire, and then her body went completely numb and she went blind from not being able to open her eyelids. So then she returns to the hospital. They still have absolutely no idea what could be causing Peggy's illness. They were stumped, but then Travis and Duane began showing symptoms similar to Peggy's. They felt this same like burning feeling in their feet and throughout their body, and then they were taken into the hospital too. So now Peggy, Travis, and Duane are all sick. Peggy was partially paralyzed and could no longer communicate verbally, but she was still able to use sign language to communicate with her sister Shirley. She knew sign language because both of their parents were deaf, which, I mean, thank God that she knew sign language to be able to communicate with her sister now, because that is the only way she could communicate. So she would often describe to Shirley how much pain she was in, like constant pain. And then Peggy's hair began to fall out in clumps. So it's at this point that doctors took urine samples from Peggy, Travis, and Duane to check for poisoning, like Gab said. They should have probably did that in the beginning before she was sent home the first time, but that's neither here nor there. I guess shit happens. So the results confirmed their suspicions, and they were positive for thallium poisoning.
Thallium rat poison?
It's found in, or used to be found in rat poison, yes. So, what exactly is thallium? It is a highly noxious metal that used to be used in things like rat poison and insecticides. It was banned in the US in 1972 because of its toxicity from accidental exposures throughout the years. It is tasteless and odorless and doesn't show up on initial testing unless you're like actually searching for it. So, if ingested, it can cause hair loss, organ and nervous system failure, vomiting, and death. And only 1 gram is needed for it to be lethal to an adult.
How on earth were they all poisoned without even knowing it? Like, it had to be someone who knew them to sneak it in there, right?
One would think. One would think.
And it's her and her kids, but not Pie's kids.
Not at the moment. At the moment, it is just Peggy's kids, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Peggy, Dwayne, Alan, and Sissy. And then no, it's one of Peggy's boys and one of Pie's boys.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so one of each of their kids.
When choosing a new podcast to listen to, I always try to find the best balance between entertainment and education. Specifically, I try to find shows that teach me something new and help me to expand my understanding of the world around me, or just inspire me to think in different ways. That's why I love the Silver Linings Handbook. This podcast tagline is interesting conversations with interesting people, and it definitely lives up to it. This podcast is completely unscripted and is hosted by a former journalist who worked at the New York Times, the Boston Globe, the Washington Post, and other newspapers. The host's approach to interviews is focused on the idea that suffering is the one thing that is universal. And because of this, he sees this as an opportunity to help others grow and learn from different lived experiences. The guests of the show are interviewed with natural curiosity, which leads to a more authentic conversational experience. Episodes that are coming up are right up the alley of our mystery lovers, as the author Alison Dickinson will be joining to discuss what we learn from psychological thrillers. And in another episode, former FBI profiler Julia Crowley will join for an episode of the real-life nightmare of the Golden State Killer. So if any of this resonates with you, make sure to subscribe to Silver Linings Handbook wherever you listen to podcasts.
There are toys, and then there are freak-out-worthy toys. Toys that get big reactions like,
OMG, no way!
Or,
Best present ever!
Or,
It's what I've always wanted.
For those toys, you need Walmart. They've got exclusives from major brands like Disney, Barbie, and Adventure Force that you can't find anywhere else. Toys that make kids jump for joy.
Thank you!
And make you a hero for giving them. Shop hundreds of exclusive toys.
Yes!
Welcome to your Walmart.
So, let's see. Peggy's toxicity levels showed over 20,000 times the natural amount of thallium we come in contact with being found in her body, which I'm like, how often do I come in contact with thallium in the first place? But I guess we do a little bit. Anyways, so she had a shit ton in her body. Her sons had smaller amounts, but were still positive for the poison. So the boys began to recover, and Peggy continued getting worse until she eventually slipped into a coma a week later. So who poisoned the Carr residents? The husband, right? It's always the husband.
Is it the husband? Because why would he poison? He has 6 kids. He's going to poison his life partner? That doesn't sound very smart.
I'm not going to ruin it for you guys, okay? We're going to pretend it's the husband right now. So a Polk County detective named Ernie Mincy was assigned to the case to determine what was used to poison the individuals. He checked the entire house, the garden, the water supply, cleaning products, whole 9 yards. He took over 400 samples to check for poison, but only one product came back positive. Coca-Cola bottles. 3 full bottles, 3 empty bottles from a 6-pack. And Peggy had drank 2 of these bottles, one before her first hospital stay, and another when she returned home from the hospital. Which is why her doses were so high, because of course she didn't know she was poisoned when she got home. So she drank it again. And then that's like doubling up her dosage.
So was the Coca-Cola, maybe it wasn't like on intentional murder. Maybe somebody accidentally at the Coca-Cola factory mess with the bottles? Because she would notice that they were opened, right? Or did they not have
Well,
seals in 1988?
They did have seals. They did indeed have seals. So let's see. So now, of course, Coca-Cola is panicking, thinking somehow their bottles are contaminated and that there could be thousands of people at risk of being poisoned by the bottles that are in circulation. They checked all of their production lines and there weren't any traces of the poison whatsoever. Therefore, the poison came closer to home, but the bottles were sealed. So what happened? By using a microscope, there were tool marks seen on the caps of the bottles that weren't visible to the naked eye. These tool marks indicated that the bottles had been tampered with. Someone opened them, carefully mixed them with thallium, and then placed the caps back on. The thing is, when thallium is mixed with Coca-Cola, it forms a residue at the bottom of the glass and makes the liquid mixture turn foggy, and it causes the mixture to overflow. So, in order for this person to be successful at poisoning the family without them being aware of the poisoning, they had to be extremely intelligent and find the exact perfect concoction to where you could hide it. This was no easy task. And of course, they're not going to list the concoction on the line. But yeah, the person had to be extremely intelligent. Not only that, they had to have taken the caps off so carefully that the naked eye couldn't even see a mark. You had to use a microscope to see marks. And they had to seal the caps back on.
But who would even want to do all of that? Like, I really don't think
that's
it's
a lot.
pie.
That's a lot. That is a lot. So, at first, as always, suspicion was on the husband, Pie. Him and Peggy had
Pie.
apparently been having marital troubles. Pie allegedly had an affair only 6 months into their marriage, and Peggy caught him. And then Peggy moved out and left, but eventually returned after Pie begged for her forgiveness. The marriage was never the same, but yeah, Pie didn't kill her, if that's what you're thinking. Pie tested positive for thallium. So highly unlikely that he would, well, first that he would have poisoned his children, and then next that he would have poisoned himself. So everyone in the family tested positive for thallium except for one daughter. Pie was removed as a suspect. And then if you're thinking, oh, it was the daughter, she was removed as a suspect too because she only drank diet soda. So she was drinking her diet when the rest of the family was drinking the regular Cokes.
So someone in their quiet little farm town, Polk County, wanted to murder the entire family.
Yes. Wanted every one of them to suffer.
Could it have been that they wanted to murder someone else and they accidentally got the Coke bottle?
I mean, that would make that would make sense too. Or like maybe they wanted to murder one person in the family, but then they were like, you know, if casualties happen, it's got to happen to ensure that this person gets the liquid. I don't know. Oddly enough, nobody in the family could remember who purchased the Coca-Cola. Everyone assumed it was just somebody else in the house without ever asking who it was. So it literally just showed up in the house one day. And they were all like, oh, you know, mom must have got it or blah, blah, blah must have got it. So it was odd for Coca-Cola to be in the house regardless because they were all known to usually drink Pepsi. But it didn't raise any eyebrows to them. It did, however, raise eyebrows to police. I'm not going to lie. If Coca-Cola just showed up in my house, I would drink it. No questions asked.
See, that's the thing. I know everything we have in our house. And if something weird is in our house, I'm like, who brought this? Why is it here? Where did it come from? And that might just be me being so weird. But
no, I would just drink it so fast. I'd YOLO it and be like, ooh, Coca-Cola.
Because Steve and I drink very different things. So I don't know. I feel like finding especially if you drink Pepsi, if someone put Pepsi in my house, the way I'd be like, okay, they're trying to kill me. And that was before I heard this. So
I mean, I get that. I get it. I'm not a Coca-Cola drinker, but I will drink anything. So,
but also it's there's 6 of them, I guess. So it makes sense if you're from a large family that you're probably not going to be suspicious, but there's only me and Steve and Joya. So like when it's less people, you'll definitely
you'd
know.
be like, hey, Steve, did you get this? And then if he was like, no, you'd be like, oh, murder. So even though it didn't raise any eyebrows to the family, it did raise eyebrows to the police. They were like, okay, so this suggests whoever purchased and placed the Coca-Cola wasn't familiar enough with the family to know their preferences were Pepsi. Which makes sense. The Carr family also said that they were never one to lock their doors. Because, they live in this nice little town with only cattle and orange groves. Why would they lock their doors? So the possibility that someone placed the beverage in the home would make the most sense. That someone like broke in and just set it down and meandered on. But so it's someone who didn't know them well enough to know their beverage preferences, but did know them well enough to know when they would be home and when they wouldn't be home. Yeah. While investigating the property, a note was found that was crumbled up and shoved in a drawer. The envelope was addressed to Pie and contained a post-it note that read, "You and all your so-called family have 2 weeks to move out of Florida forever, or else you all die. This is no joke." End quote. So I feel like this is the kind of note I would have mentioned to police in the first place. Not judging anyone here, but Pie, what are you doing?
Also, why would someone want the entire family, specifically this little small town family, to move out of Florida? The whole state. You can't be in the state.
No, the whole state. Get out. And then Pie, your wife is poisoned, and you're just like, oh, that little note there? That note came in 3 months ago. I just didn't think anything of it. So Pie brushed the note off as nothing, assuming it was like from a pissed off neighbor that he had been arguing with. Even then, if it is from a pissed off neighbor, you should probably be like a little of concern, or at least after your wife is poisoned. I'm not judging you, Pie. I'm not judging. But like maybe after your wife is poisoned, you might be like, that note where they threatened to kill my whole family and then my whole family was poisoned. Maybe I should
That is like
that.
Real husband behavior, though. Like I'm not even faulting Pie. That's literally just something a husband would do.
What husbands be doing.
Oh my gosh.
So
I feel bad because they die though, right? Like everyone dies.
No, we're not going to cover it, but not everyone dies. I mean, we are going to cover it, but not everyone dies. So the note had spelled Pie's name right, which, I mean, if me saying Pie, you're going to assume it's P-I-E. It's not. It's P-Y-E. Not to even mention his actual first name, which is, it's a lot. Anywho, Pie had an odd name, so this meant that it was in fact someone that knew him. He only had one neighbor close by, like in the general vicinity, and it was the neighbor that he had been arguing with. So, police went from neighbor to neighbor and interviewed them all about the situation at hand. Everyone was very sad about what was happening to Peggy, except one person. The same neighbor that Pie had said sent him the note, or he thought had sent him the note. The neighbor's response to the police was, well, maybe someone wanted them to move out of the neighborhood.
Why?
Why? Very sus, to say the least, Guy. What are your motives?
From the creators of the popular science show with millions of YouTube subscribers comes the Minute Earth podcast. Every episode of the show dives deep into a science question you might not even know you had. But once you hear the answer, you'll want to share it with everyone you know. Why do rivers curve? Why did the T-Rex have such tiny arms? And why do so many more kids need glasses now than they used to? Spoiler alert, it isn't screen time. Our team of scientists digs into the research and breaks it down into a short, entertaining explanation, jam-packed with science facts and terrible puns. Subscribe to Minute Earth wherever you like to listen.
When Johann Rall received the letter on Christmas Day 1776, he put it away to read later. Maybe he thought it was a season's greeting and wanted to save it for the fireside. But what it actually was a warning, delivered to the Hessian colonel, letting him know that General George Washington was crossing the Delaware and would soon attack his forces. The next day, when Rall lost the Battle of Trenton and died from 2 colonial Boxing Day musket balls, the letter was found, unopened in his vest pocket. As someone with 15,000 unread emails in his inbox, I feel like there's a lesson there. Oh well, this is The Constant, a history of getting things wrong. I'm Mark Chrysler. Every episode, we look at the bad ideas, mistakes, and accidents that misshaped our world. Find us at constantpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
So, of course, police look into this neighbor, and this is where everything kind of begins to fall into place and starts to make sense. The neighbor in question was 39-year-old George Treepow. He was a self-taught chemist and a computer programmer. He lived with his wife, Diane Carr, and I also read that Diane was a chemist as well. But I'm not too sure about that. George was unemployed during this time, but he was an extremely intelligent person. He had a psychology degree. He graduated with an IQ of 150. He was a member of Mensa, MENSA, which is a group that contains only the top 2% of the population with the highest IQs. He met his wife through Mensa during a murder mystery weekend. Diana was extremely intelligent as well, being one of the first female orthopedic surgeons in the United States. So they're like a power couple.
Yeah, why would they want to? First of all, why would he want his neighbor to move out? They're living in the middle of nowhere. You have one neighbor, you want them out? Was it a land dispute? And then if you're so smart, why couldn't you get away with the murder? Freaking, yeah, I don't know. That's upsetting.
Well, I mean, this murder is like he's a very intelligent guy, I will say.
Yeah.
Like in today's society, not that I would ever kill anybody, but if you were to, like, for instance, in my small little hometown, they ain't gonna check you for thallium poisoning. Like literally, which nobody listen to that. Nobody, they will check you now if you listen to my podcast, but like that's smart to get away with it. Like, I don't know. Anywho,
That is smart.
It is smart. And
but I feel like a
you
smart
had to
person
use a
wouldn't
microscope to even be able to tell that he took the caps off. Like, there were no fingerprints found on the Coke bottles.
But still, I feel like if you're so smart, murder wouldn't be your first course of action, you know?
Well,
you know.
George was odd, to say the least. And we're going to dive into a little bit about George just so we can learn about him. He had studied at Clemson University in South Carolina, and he was known for experimenting in illegal drugs like most young kids do. But when I say experimenting in illegal drugs, I don't mean he was trying them himself. Oh no, that would be too normal for George. No, he would purposely spike other people without their knowledge to see how it would affect their behavior. Like he was studying them.
Yeah. What is wrong with George?
George was odd. He also once coated his door handles and fridge handles at school with hallucinogens to see who was breaking into his room and stealing his food.
George. I mean, I get it, but George.
I don't like when people take my food either, but George. Like,
well, now you have a new way to prevent people from taking your food. So
hallucinogens? Like, come on now. I don't know about it. So after he graduated in 1975, he was then arrested for operating a large methamphetamine lab.
What?
He spent 3 years of his life in prison for this crime. Also, something to note, a byproduct in the creation of methamphetamine is thallium.
Why would he be so smart and decide meth was the answer?
Have you seen Breaking Bad? Money.
I have.
Money.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
When you're that smart, and if you're not using yourself, money. Yeah, anyway, so after George gets out of prison, he's like, I'm going to turn my life around. He meets Diana. They move to this tiny little town where he just wants his peace and quiet. But George didn't like the new neighbors that moved in across the street that overcrowded the house across the street. He and his wife didn't like how the Carr family acted. The boys of the family would drive loud four-wheelers all around. Peggy's dogs would chase George's cats. They were known to be a little loud. They were a large family. Of course, they're going to be loud. A week before, yeah, of course they're going to be loud. Like, that just comes with having neighbors. I don't want people's dogs chasing my cats either, but I'm not going to, like, kill them with poison. I mean, I've known of people killing the dogs with poison, but, like, to kill the people with poison, George, you shouldn't kill anyone with poison, but George.
Or any dog with poison. Just don't kill the
No.
dogs.
Don't kill the dogs with poison. Unless they rip your cat into shreds. Sorry.
Sore spot?
I had a cat die a few days ago because she got tore up by dogs. And if I find
Was that the
out,
baby?
No,
Was it
not the baby? It's Lucy. She had been my work cat for years at Polly's house. I raised her from a kitten into an adult. And then when Polly passed away, she went to live at my Mima's house. And then when we moved here, we were going to take her here because she's just a sweet little angel baby and the most precious cat you'd ever meet. But my grandpa's in a wheelchair and he fell in love with her. So she was remaining there. My sweet little baby, Lucy. She's the best girl. But then dogs, I know what you look like, dogs. You're on my list. But they ran out from nowhere, pack mentality, and ripped my cat into pieces. And if I find out who you are, owners of said dogs, it won't be good for you. It won't. I shouldn't say that in an episode like this, but it won't be good for you. I'm very angry
so
at
sad.
you. I'm very angry
I'm
at you and your
sorry.
piece of shit dogs. You have aggressive dogs. Maybe don't let them run around wild, you piece of shit. Anywho.
That's so sad. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's fine. Everything's fine. A week before Peggy was poisoned, I say that laughing because the transition, not because Peggy was poisoned. There's nothing funny about Peggy being poisoned. But Diana screamed at Peggy to keep their noise levels down. And then Diana finished with, "You won't get away with this. This isn't over." This is a week before Peggy is poisoned.
That's ominous.
Very ominous, Diana. So now police are convinced that George is responsible for the poisoning. You think? But again, as with our last episode like this, it is all circumstantial. So after 4 months of Peggy being in a coma, she does pass away. This went from poisoning to now a murder case, making it that much more important that whoever is responsible be brought to justice. So this is where a wonderful undercover agent, Susan, I believe her last name is Gorick, comes into play. She poses as a fellow Mensa member by the name of Sherry Gwynn, and she attends the 4th annual Murder Mystery Weekend, coincidentally organized by George and Diana themselves.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So one of the leaflets for the event read, "Few voodooists believe they can be killed by psychic means, but no one doubts they can all be poisoned. When a death threat appears on the doorstep, prudent people throw out all their food and watch what they eat. Hardly anyone dies from magic. Most items on the doorstep are just a neighbor's way of saying, 'I don't like you. Move or else.'"
What?
Huh. How about that? Obviously kind of close to home with Peggy's murder. Another interesting part, the victim in the murder mystery also received a threatening note as part of the plot. Sus. Again, very sus. So Susan, undercover cop Susan, became friends with George at the event, mentioning how smart he was. You always got to gas them up on their intelligence. They like that shit. So the two began spending more time together. Susan would record phone calls to the house, hoping one day George would slip up and mention something about Peggy. They went on picnics together. I would not eat food around this man. Like, what? Anywho, went on picnics together, dinners. Susan would talk to him about like a fake divorce she was going through. Like, oh, my terrible fake divorce, trying to gain his trust. George suggested blackmail might help the situation, or perhaps sending the husband some poisoned flowers.
George,
what?
What?
She also...
Oh, sorry. We were talking about her being undercover, and I was on TikTok, and you know that one attorney, Reb, I think is her name. She was telling a story this week about a cop who went undercover for 19 years to catch a woman, and he went so far as to marry her and have kids with her.
Oh, I seen that, and the woman sued, rightfully so. But the amount of anger I would feel,
Yeah.
you would never
I'm
trust
sorry.
another person in your whole life.
There's a line. You don't have a kid with someone if you're under. I don't know. I'm sure that broke some rule, right?
That had to break many rules, and also, she could get him for rape too, because he is undercover in a false identity. So that that's non-consensual. So he could also get rape charges for that. Fuck that.
Steve Cubine and Nan McNamara's podcast, From Beneath the Hollywood Sign.
Mary Astor has been keeping a diary.
Mary writes everything down.
And so this torrid affair with George S. Kaufman is chronicled on a daily basis.
In great detail. And Ike pulls out a box and gives McAllister a ring saying, here's something to remember me by. This article caused Daryl Zanuck to hit the roof.
Actress Ruth Roman followed that up with playing a foil to Betty Davis in Beyond the Forest. I mean, if you can stand toe-to-toe with her, boy.
And she does, because she plays the daughter of the man that Betty Davis kills out on the hunting trip.
And it's directed by King Vidor, so he's no slouch.
How do you go wrong with that?
Yeah.
Speaking of the Oscars, talking about what I call beginner's luck, it's all about the actors and actresses who won an Oscar on their very first film.
Get your fix of old Hollywood from Steve and Nan on the podcast, From Beneath the Hollywood Sign.
Hello, this is Matt from the Explorers Podcast. I want to invite you to join me on the voyages and journeys of the most famous explorers in the history of the world. At the Explorers Podcast, we plunge into jungles and deserts, across mighty oceans and frigid ice caps, over and to the top of great mountains, and even into outer space. These are the thrilling and captivating stories of Magellan, Shackleton, Lewis and Clark, and so many other famous and not so famous adventurers from throughout history. So come give us a listen. We'd love to have you. Go to explorerspodcast.com or just look us up on your podcast app. That's the Explorers Podcast.
Where were we? Oh, yeah. She also noticed a book that George had been reading called The Pale Horse, which uses thallium as a method of murder. Still all circumstantial, though. Susan eventually got a break when George and Diana decided that they were going to move away, and then they rented their home to Susan. So they didn't move out all of their belongings yet before allowing Susan to move in, and then they ended up going out of town for a short amount of time. So while they were out of town, the police did a search on the entire property hunting for evidence. While searching the garage, they discovered that George was a man of many chemicals. One of these being a small brown bottle with a white substance containing traces of thallium.
So they weren't even planning on staying there. They're moving now, but they killed their neighbor.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Like, what the fuck? Oh, George. But how did George secure the bottle caps back on so seamlessly? That's another question we have. While police were searching his home, they discovered that George had his own homemade wine business going on. And he had a bottle cap sealer that he used for his homemade wine business. George was all over the place. There was also a secret passageway in the home that led to a room filled with bondage equipment and a weird mannequin. And that's neither here nor there. Police were like, all right, odd.
I mean, who doesn't? Who doesn't?
The mannequin, though?
I mean, not the mannequin, but the other stuff.
The bondage, you do you, whatevs. But the mannequin, though? But police were literally like, okay, weird, but does not make a murderer. Noted. So the search is now done. And Susan wants to try one last time to get him to confess. She meets him at a McDonald's with a hidden camera on and tells him that officers had visited her while he was out of town and they were asking her about a murder. George's only response is, I hope I'm not a suspect in this. That could be messy. That's it. So not a confession, not a confession. I don't know. Not proof either way. So now months go by. There's still been no arrests. But on April 7th, 1990, police were able to get a search warrant for George's new home. Diana tried to block them from entering and was physically restrained. Silly Diana. Like, what do you think you're going to do? You have a search warrant. You cannot pass. She's silly. The police found books about poison, a book that George had written himself called Chemistry for the Complete Idiot, Practical Guide to Chemistry. He really is a George of all trades, some might say. While searching the new home, police found another secret room in this home. This room was a little more dark than the last, with the windows being sealed shut, no door handle from the inside, a bed with shackles, and a makeshift pulley system to lift a person on and off of the bed.
Okay, now that's weird.
Yeah, not everyone just has that vibing in their house. And then Diana's ass tried saying, oh, this is a dark room for photography.
What
This is
are
our
they photographing?
Yeah, Diana. And she was like, oh, those shackles there, those are props for our murder mystery weekends. That's not anything to be of concern about. Right, Diana. Susan believes this room was for her. She had been invited to the home on multiple occasions and then just wasn't able to go because something's coming up here and there. Thank God, Susan, that you were not able to go because you would have been locked in that fucking room.
Plus, she's a cop, so surely someone would have looked for her, right?
Yes, surely someone would have looked for her. We hope to God. So after this search of the house, George was arrested and charged with 1 count murder, 6 counts attempted murder, 7 counts poisoning, 1 count tampering with a consumer product. And Diana swears that someone broke in and planted the thallium bottle in her home to set George up. The trial was in 1991, and he was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to death. He is still on death row as of right now in Florida, in a Florida prison.
Wow.
I know.
So, did Diana not get charged with anything?
No,
like, wouldn't she be
Diana,
an accomplice?
You would think. I kind of think Diana was the brains around it. Like, I know that George had a pretty good background in chemistry, but Diana knew. You can't tell me that Diana didn't know. She's throwing off threats like, you just wait, you're going to get what's coming to you, blah, blah, blah. Diana fucking knew.
Is she a surgeon still? Like, could you imagine she's a surgeon?
I imagine she is probably still a surgeon. She never got charged.
Oh, no. Nope. No.
Fucking psychotic. Diana did end up, she always swore his innocence and everything, but she did end up divorcing him and remarrying too. And I'm just like, what?
So she divorced him after he went to death row? I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
That's kind of messed up.
She divorced him and remarried. Pi ended up remarrying too, which, like, good for Pi. You deserve to live your life, I suppose.
But I feel like divorcing someone on death row is, I mean, yeah, they did a crime, but still that's kind of sad because they're going to die too.
And I feel like Diana played a huge role in the reason why he's on death row. Like, you can't tell me that she didn't have it out for Peggy. She did.
Allegedly.
Everything I'm saying is very alleged. Also, the information that I got was from a Forensic Files episode. It's where I got this idea. Look at me in my bedtime Forensic Files. Also, there was like a true crime, I think, documentary called The Cola Killer. And someone on Reddit posted the transcript, which you are a real one, Reddit person. I have posted you in my references because your transcript saved Brenna many a time and many a place. Anyways, I know I was supposed to write about plants, but just a chemistry turned methamphetamine creator turned murderer because he wanted his peace and quiet, and then he ended up moving anyways. Like, how could you pass that up?
Yeah, I just don't understand the moving anyway. Like, if that was your forever home,
I don't understand the moving anyway either. Maybe it's because he thought people were onto him. I don't know.
and also like, yeah, everybody has neighbors they don't like, so you just move, or you live somewhere with no neighbors. You know, I mean,
No,
I
I
love all my
moved.
neighbors.
My neighbors sucked ass. Well, no, the ones, not the crackheads, but the ones diagonal to me were absolutely perfect. I love her and her family with my whole heart. The one that shared a yard with me, he was psychotic. I had to get a gun because of him. I had to walk around with my gun knowing he was looking in my windows so he could see that I had a gun. He was literally insane. He would record me in the middle of the night. He'd come into my backyard and look through my glass door. Like, it's a wonder I didn't end up on the show Snapped because he's got
My
some problems.
my neighbors are normal. They have like kids, and everyone just vibes. We hang out, we chill.
Except
pretty
when they do
much-
weird stuff.
That's pretty much it. We had some weird neighbors when we first moved in, but they moved out like so fast. Like after a year, they were gone, which was good.
That's good.
I feel like I'm the weird neighbor because sometimes they'd be, hanging out in their yard, and then Steve and I are like hitting each other with foam pole arms.
Yeah. You are the weird neighbor.
We are the weird neighbor. It's not great.
It's cool though. It's all vibes.
So
I
now I
used
have
to
to be
do
extra.
weird stuff too. Now I just
Well-
walk around my yard in a nightgown
That's just
all
normal.
hours of the day. I'm in a nightgown right now. I don't know if Gabby can see it. I haven't changed today. I got up and then at 1:00 I made spaghetti because Chris was like, "Can you make spaghetti at 1:00?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" And I made an insane amount of spaghetti. And then 8 said spaghetti. And then my child was like, "Mother, let us take a nap." And then I took a nap. And then I had to finish this super cool episode. And now I'm praying that my microphone doesn't sound like shit because I'm new to editing. Let us pray. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, please let Brenna's microphone not sound like shit. Please let her be able to edit this swiftly and fastly. In Jesus' name I pray, I love you, amen. For all those that aren't religious, I'm sorry about that. We were just doing a little quick, just a little bless up. Blessed be the fruit.
We need to start recording these. I'm gonna get my like OBS, and we could get a video and just put the video up. But then you guys are gonna see me like zoned out sometimes, or you're gonna see when Brenna freezes because you froze. No, I'm not even joking. I'm like into the story. Like we're getting to the part where we find out like when Sharon confronts him, and right before she confronts him, it froze. So then I had to be like reading the script. I was reading the script for once. Could you imagine my horror?
You never froze this whole time. I wonder why I froze.
I don't know. It just froze for like probably like 20 seconds. It's fine. But
And
yeah,
I'm hooked in directly to the interweb. I shouldn't be doing that. Oh well, that's what happens when you live in the middle of nowhere, like I do. I live in this nice, quaint town, and then some neighbor's gonna come over because I don't lock my doors. I do lock my doors, fuckers that are listening to this. The doors are locked. The shotgun is beside the door. The revolver is beside the bed.
don't tell them where the guns are.
I will move the revolver and the shotgun.
Okay, please don't go murder my friend.
You don't know where I live unless you had me on Facebook that one time that I put my address online.
Actually, it's really easy to find where people live, especially if you own your house and if it's registered to your name, unfortunately. Like Steven has this thing though that deletes all of our information online, but you have to pay for it. And I'm not giving them a free ad. But yeah, people can easily, I know everyone. I know the cost of everyone's house, how much they bought their house for. Just
I
'cause
do creep on Zillow like that though.
Not even Zillow. It's like a like website. You could just find out everything about everyone. It's crazy.
Dun.
I did do an ad for them, and that's the only reason I know about it.
Hey, that's pretty cool though. All right, guys. We're going to call it quits because I'm already nervous about trying to edit this bad boy because my microphone is just not, I don't know. We'll fix it. We'll get there. It could be good. I don't know. I ain't heard her yet. We don't know. All right. Thank you all for listening. Subscribe to the Patreon. The next Patreon episode is about a couple of states in the United States and about the cryptids that stay in those states.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
What do you get when you take two childhood friends with a passion for unexplored history and a whole lot of booze?
You get us, Queen's Podcast.
And here at Queen's, we are spilling the tea on all kinds of women from history.
From New Orleans voodoo queen, Marie Laveau, to Marie Antoinette, and everything in between.
Each queen is paired with a cocktail recipe that will totally get you in the mood to hear the fun, dramatic, and juicy stories of fascinating women from history.
Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Cheers!